Thank you. Welcome everyone to the first thematic webinar on inclusion of migrants and refugees of the ICP-AGIR project. We are going to get people slowly getting into this room, to this Teams live event today, 16th of March, 4 o'clock Central European Time. My name is Raoul Daussin, and I will be your host today. For those of you representing cities participating in the ICP-AGIR program, a warm welcome and thanks for joining us. For those of you that have learned about this webinar online, I will explain in a minute what the ICP-AGIR program is about. We can still look at the previous slide so that we have a general indication and we are getting more attendees. It's important to mention that the recording of this webinar will be posted in our online platform. And if you are not live with us today, I encourage you to comment and contribute to the Thematic Cluster channel by sharing your experiences or telling us if you have been able to use the knowledge that you will gain today. For those cities not in the ICP program, we will post the recording as well in our social media channels. So make sure you follow us. Today's agenda is quite straightforward. I will introduce the ICP-AGIR project and the thematic clusters and share best practices. Then our guest speaker, Mr. Jan Braat, will tell us about the experience and preparations from Utrecht in the Netherlands to host refugees from Ukraine. We will move then to the Q&A session. You can post questions in the Q&A section of the Team Live's platform, and we will select the most relevant and answer them at the end. We have 30 minutes in total, but if we have more questions than time, we will be able to extend the duration of the webinar. Now we can move to the next slide. Thank you. Let me briefly summarize what is the ICP program. ICP-AGIR stands for International City Partnerships Acting for Green and Inclusive Recovery. And please do visit our website, icp-agir.eu, for more information. In a nutshell, this is a European Union project managed by the Directorate General for Regional and Urban Policy, also known as DG Regio, of the European Commission. The objective is to contribute to the improvement of quality of life in participating cities by promoting sustainable and integrated urban development through the identification of innovative policies and programs. The project consists on 14 different city partnerships between EU and non-EU cities from Canada, South Africa, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan. The areas of cooperation are 3: inclusion of migrants and refugees, circular economy and energy transition, and air quality. As said before, please do visit our website as we will update the results achieved during this program. Now, let's focus on the area of today's presentation. We are facing the biggest refugee crisis since World War II, and cities have an important role to play. The cooperation of Utrecht and the city of St. John's in Canada will focus on best practices to host refugees. And I would like to thank again Mr. Jan Braat to volunteer today to explain us how you are handling this crisis. We know you are very busy these days, and I appreciate very much that you took the time to be with us today. The floor and the focus is yours, Jan. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Raoul. I will introduce myself. I'm Jan Braat. I'm since 20 years already a senior policy advisor on migration and inclusion with the municipality of Utrecht in the Netherlands, the fourth biggest city in the Netherlands. I'm also a member of the working group Migration of Eurocities. It's an international network of 200 cities with 80 cities cooperating on the issue of migration and integration. I will tell you something how we, for the last few weeks, are trying to handle the Ukraine refugee crisis, because as you know, and you can read the papers and you can see it every day on television, this is, and Roel already said it, it was the biggest crisis since World War II, and I will have a small presentations, and after that you can ask questions. If you later have some question, my email is in the presentation you see in this slide. Maybe next slide. Okay, oh, comes back. Yes. Let's say 1.5 week ago, the municipality of Utrecht decided to organize a Ukraine crisis team. Here you see a picture of our crisis room in the office of the municipality. We started with 3-4 people, and it's now expanded till 20-25 people. Because the challenge we have is very big. I come to the challenge in the next few slides. We have a team with knowledge on asylum and reception of refugees. That's also my knowledge area. People finding spaces for reception of Ukrainians, so for rebuilding buildings, offices, how to handle the procedures in a very quick way, because the challenge we have is not have some spaces for Ukrainians to sleep and to eat in a few months, but in a few days. So we are in constant, let's say, crisis mode. We have communication officers there. We have people from the who talk with the politicians so that they know what's happening and they can tell the city council about it. And we have people who do the registrations, who arrange the schools for especially the children. As you know, most of the Ukrainian refugees are women and children, medical care, etc., etc., etc. Next slide, please. Now, here you see myself with a sign near the Utrecht Central Station, because the Ukrainian refugees come in mostly in 2 ways. One is with buses, or the other is with the trains from Poland and through Berlin and Germany. Utrecht is the biggest train station in the Netherlands, so we put out signs, and there are also people from the Red Cross on the train station that if people from the Ukraine get out of the train, they help them to the what we call the Jaarbeurshof. The Jaarbeurs is a big hall where normally all kinds of events are taking place, and you will see pictures of that. I think on the moment it's not so busy as you think, especially when you compare it to the situation in Poland and Germany and, for example, France, but the numbers go up. The next slide, please. This is the reception facility of the Jaarbeurs. There are 370 beds. We put them in place, let's say, last Thursday night, because there were all kinds of rumors that there were massive flows of people coming to the Netherlands, and we would be prepared that everyone could have a bed for one evening. This hub is, let's say, people come here to register. The people of the Refugee Council, Red Cross, and other medical care organizations are talking to them. And then when they come in office hours, we arrange that they go to a reception facility the same day. And if they come in the evening or night, then we will move them to another reception facility the next day. On the moment, we have 490 people in a reception facility, and most of them are hotels, because that was they have rooms ready, and they have also all kinds of services like a restaurant and breakfast, etc. We have also already 40 persons with people at home. There is a big a great amount of people in the Netherlands, and especially also in Utrecht, who want to receive Ukrainian families at home, so that they have also a place to stay. So our aim was 400 places in 1 week, and the next week, this week, we're aiming for another 400 places to be ready to receive Ukrainian refugees. National, our aim is to have 25,000 places in the first week, and next week, that's this week, another 25,000. So there's totally 50,000. And you have to think, in the context of the Netherlands, the asylum centers we have already nationally only have places for 30,000 asylum seekers. So within 2 weeks, we have to almost double or more than double our amount of reception places. Next slide, please. So here's some figures. You can read it also in the paper. 3 million people fled Ukraine, biggest refugee crisis since World War II. More than 1.5 million, I think it's now 1.8 Ukrainians in Poland. Berlin train stations get 10,000 people a day of Ukrainians traveling to the rest of Germany and the rest of Europe. UNHCR thinks it will be 4 to 7 million, but if the war goes on, I think it will be more than 7 million. Now, I already said we had to receive 50,000, but that's a minimum. There are some scenarios that it will go up to 250,000 persons. And as I already said, only 30,000 refugees we have in asylum centers from the national government now. What's special is the reception of refugees is normally a responsibility of the national government, and there is one agency who does the reception in asylum centers. But now they asked the municipalities to arrange all these places because one organization couldn't do that. So we have 25 safety regions in the Netherlands. The mayors are in charge of that, and they asked every region to have first 1,000 places in 1 week, and on the next week another 1,000 people, and then you come to the 50,000 places. On the moment, in the first week, there are nationally 17,000 places arranged, and we received 7,200 Ukrainians. But you have to think it goes about 1,000 people a day. So probably in a few days it will be more than 10,000 people. Most of them are now in hotels or other facilities that could be arranged within a few days. Next slide, please. Now, I already said something. What is our reception plan of Utrecht? We have to arrange 800 spaces in 2 weeks, and we have some scenarios to scale it up till 2,000 spaces. We are now researching 50 buildings at the same time, if there are possibilities on short notice or within a few months or within a half year, that they are ready to be a reception center for Ukrainian refugees, and on the moment that 50 buildings is about 1,300 places, but we don't know yet how many will be exactly after we research them. We want small-scale facilities because with a building like this with 300, 400 people with maybe 100 or 200 children, that's not suitable for families. So we want small-scale buildings, but also that people can, for example, cook themselves, buy their own food, so that they can have some arrange their own life more and more again, and not totally dependable of, for example, the food of a hotel or a restaurant. I already said something about 40 people who now live with Utrecht families and in Utrecht citizens, but more than 40 Utrecht citizens are saying, if you have a Ukrainian family, they can live in our house. That's very nice because it's something, the power of the people of Utrecht, but people have to be aware that it isn't over in 1 or 2 weeks. And if you have a family in your house for maybe a month or 2 months or half a year, that can be a burden. So we are really trying to thinking this is a temporary solution, and after that we need some structural reception centers where people can live for their own. Next slide, please. Now here's a small picture of Ukrainian women families coming. This was a picture of Saturday morning. I was near the center where they come in. You see they have some small bags. There was also a dog with it, or an older man in a wheelchair. So we don't know when people are coming, how many they are, and it's also a bit of a rumor. So sometimes there are buses just coming in, and sometimes they call us before, and then we can be a little bit more prepared. 70% are, that's a rough estimate, looking at the figures now, are women and children, but there are also people from, for example, and you could see that in the media, people from Africa who studied or worked in Ukraine, but they of course also fled the war. And it are Ukrainians with documents, with passports, for example, or without documents. Now, the people who work there, are, what we see is people from Nigeria, Cameroon, Morocco, and other African countries. And as we said, we want this group goes to a small reception center, but and hotels, and after that we want to have a more structural center where they can live. Next slide, please. Children, now you see them here playing in the big hall. We already arranged that children can go to school at once as if they want to. We will arrange 300 extra, or we are aiming to arrange 300 extra places for primary school and 300 for secondary school. Of course, we don't know how many children exactly will come or in which age they are. So we just think we arrange this, and then we see in practice what will happen. There's a big cooperation between schools who now already teach refugee children, and but we also made a cooperation with international schools, because we of course don't know, are they gonna learn Dutch, or are they, maybe it's better to learn them English as a common language, and maybe easier to learn, or they already speak English. So we have no idea if people gonna stay, or how long the Ukraine war will take, and if they go back, yeah, what is the use of Dutch, to learn Dutch? But yeah, it's something we have to look in the next few weeks and months, what's best suited for these children. Next slide, please. Now, I already said, so Benjamin Barber, his famous book, now I would say 5 mayors or mayors rule the world. So I think because it is now the responsibility of the local government, we could arrange all kinds of places, all kinds of people supporting the Ukrainians, because we are close to the people, and that's also what Benjamin Barber says. But yeah, we don't know what the future will bring. Is it a half a year? That is what now the national government are saying. Is it a year? Is it years? We of course had, we learned a little bit from the crisis in former Yugoslavia in the 90s, that many people just stayed here for a few years, but after the war stopped, people returned, but not all of them. So people will stay or go back. We have to see what will happen. Till now, the national government pays all the bill, but yeah, this if I don't know, 100,000 people come to the Netherlands, it costs billions of euros, so that will be some biggest burden. But we as a local government said, you have to pay the bill, because we are just going forward looking at, for example, as I told, the 50 buildings, and we can't wait till a specific financial arrangement, and the risk can't be a financial risk on the local government, because otherwise we can't handle this crisis. Now, my last remark is there's an overwhelming positive solidarity of Utrecht and Dutch citizens with the people of Ukraine, with churches, with NGOs, but also with companies who want to do something, who want to arrange something, and we try to have this positive energy make use for a positive, what we in Utrecht call a welcoming city experience for not only Ukraine refugees, but all refugees who come to Utrecht. So this is in short what I want to tell, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is Raul again, your host today. Thank you, Jan Braat. He is the Utrecht's Senior Policy Advisor on Migration and Inclusion, and he has given us a really good overview of what Utrecht is doing to host and prepare for the refugees that are coming from Ukraine. Now we can open the Q&A session. I will repeat some of my remarks at the beginning for those who were a bit late in joining us today. Please, if you are joining us live and you can ask questions, if you could tell us from which city you are coming from, so that we know, can identify you. And then your questions will be in the text, and we can vote for those that are more relevant. So if you have similar questions, you can vote, and then we will select those. We already have two questions. The first one is about, is the national government funding the reception of the refugees? Jan?
Sorry, can you?
Yes, the question. I think that the question was posted before I asked for the identification. The question is about if the national government of the Netherlands is funding the reception of the refugees.
Yes.
Who's the funding?
Now the funding, we make all the costs, and the national government promised us also on paper that integral, so all costs are paid by the national government to the local government. So it's about reception center, it's about guidance, it's about medical care, it's about schools, whatever.
Perfect, thank you. We have another question from Vera. So from Vera, what is the role of the municipalities as far as reception and settlement of refugees regularly outside of this crisis?
Yes. Normally in the Netherlands, we have one reception agency that is done by the national government, and they have reception centers mostly from, let's say, 300 places till 600-700 places, so kind of camps for asylum seekers. When they get a residence permit, they go to the municipality, and we have to house them with social housing. If they are rejected, they have to return to their home country. There is a lot of discussion and criticism of the way these camps are handled, because we as a municipality think a reception center must not be only a burden, but also something positive for the city. So we made what we in Utrecht made our Plan Einstein concept, and that's about that the reception center, there will be all kinds of activities from day one for the refugees, but also inclusive for the people in the neighborhood. So there are lessons, for example, in entrepreneurship, ICT, or English courses, but also all kinds of voluntary activities on sports, culture, arts, whatever. And we do that we can show that if a reception center comes to your neighborhood, that it also has a positive impact on the neighborhood. Now, this is, you can read a lot about Plan Einstein Utrecht also on the Urban Innovative Action website of the European Commission, because this is a big success, and most this concept, which we did from 2017 after the Syria crisis, changed the national policy on the way we receive on a more positive way refugees.
Thank you. And that was Vera from Toronto. Thank you very much for joining us. Participant as well in the ICP program. We have a question from Aurélie from France. How are the Utrecht inhabitants involved in this approach? You've been talking about solidarity. Yeah. Is it different from other times of the crisis?
No, when we had, for example, the Syria crisis, there were a lot of people wanting to do something. We have, for example, we have a project called Come and Eat, that refugees can eat for one night with a Utrecht citizen or family. And that was so popular, there were no refugees left, and there were more Utrecht people who asked them to be part of this project. So there is a lot of positive attitudes. There are all kinds of voluntary activities. People arrange things on sports, on culture, free cultural visits to musea, and we really try to that helps us as a municipality a lot, because then people will meet, and it will be a more inclusive idea of how you handle the reception of refugees and the integration of refugees.
Thank you. And we have two questions from Juan Carlos from Fuenlabrada, another of our ICP-AGIR cities. The first question is about how are you managing the offering of Utrecht families that want to hold Ukrainian people?
Yeah.
I guess it's more specifically the managing part.
Yeah. I already said there are more 200 plus families who offered their houses to receive an Ukrainian family. We have a cooperation with churches, and many of these, the Protestant churches, many of these families asked the Protestant church in Utrecht if there are possibilities. So we have the council of the Protestant churches together with the refugee council talking to the families if these families is okay, if it's not it's safe for someone to stay there, and if it's the case, then we try to pick a good family who with for example, if you have a family with 1 child or 5 children, then it's you have to really match what's suitable. And we were always talking with them, also with the refugee council and the churches, with looking what kind of support is needed. For example, some money for the families, but also a little money, but most of them don't want that, for the Dutch families who receive them for their cost.
Thank you. And actually considering as well of support, Juan Carlos is also interested if you are offering psychological support to refugees.
Yes.
And what other services do you consider relevant to offer?
Of course, there is within Utrecht, for all Utrecht people, there are all kinds of psychological support. And that is also in place for the Ukraine people. We give also some specific courses, especially through the Refugee Council, because they are, of course, more specialized in trauma because of war refugees. But in our policy, we also look at. We think it's important to stress. Most of the time people think about post-traumatic stress disorder and a lot of therapy. And sometimes, of course, this is also needed and we will give them through our care system. But in Utrecht, we think more in post-traumatic growth, that if it's more important, it's very important that people from day one they are there or within a few days get all kinds of activities, because if you do nothing and only think about what's happening or what will happen to your husband who's still fighting in Ukraine, then it's much more a psychological burden. But if you have also all kinds of activities for your child or for yourself, or you can work, because we also want people to work if they want to, then then the trauma goes a little bit to will be a little bit less. And we have really also within our Plan Einstein concept, we had positive experience with this.
Thank you. There are no more new questions so far. We can give a minute or so of those who are a bit shy or maybe they want to clarify on of the questions that you have already answered. Meanwhile, I have to say that I think that the organization and scalability of this operation is remarkable. You mentioned you started with 4 people, now you are 25, and of course you have to adapt to the influx of refugees. We can see you in photos in meetings, but also next to the banner to the station with the sign in Ukrainian. So it's a bit of everyone has to be 24 hours available. I see that you're checking your phone, so bear with us. We have another question. Actually, it's from Toronto as well. Gord Tanner, he's telling, can you share more about the skills on background of the people on your crisis team? That's a relevant question.
Yeah.
See, maybe they will hire them for you.
Yeah. We don't have really in-depth picture about that, but we can see that there are also many people who are highly educated, and there are really people who want already to work. For example, we had
Jan, I think the question is not about the refugees, so it's about the skills or background of the people on your crisis team.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Are they psychologists? Are they planners? Are they?
No. Most of them are planners and civil servants. But we work if we want to, and we are good organizers on all kinds of topics. But we always, at least in the Netherlands, we work with non-governmental organizations, with, for example, the Red Cross, or we work with builders to build or refurnish some office building to a reception center, and there's that kind of skills. How can we make a decision? We are, for example, thinking about, is it possible to have a hotel boat somewhere in the waters of Utrecht, so that is easy to that can be quickly be a reception center, but you need to arrange all kinds of licenses and so on and so on. And it, of course, the financial side of things, and people have to negotiate the right price for that. But the most of our biggest challenge is it has to be quick.
Thank you. As I said before, we have more time if you or any of the participants would like to clarify on any of the questions or put a new question to Jan. I think you said that you mentioned the cost is important, but it's actually linked to the uncertainty of how long this is gonna last.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the problems is we don't know exactly what the costs are now. I think maybe we pay around somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 euro a day. But there are all kinds of financials are looking into what our costs now. So it was first try to arrange all those spaces, like the 500 in hotel. And you can think what a hotel bed cost if it's also with breakfast and dinner included. So the cost is very high. So therefore, it is not manageable by the financial our financial system, and how much money we have as a local government is not suitable for that. So the national government has to pay.
Correct. Thank you very much. I see we don't have any more questions coming. I would like to give the last opportunity. We do have time. We said before this recording also will be available for all of you, part of the ICP-AGIR program in the thematic cluster channel, and Jan is so keen to participate either in the chat, but also if you tell us your experience was good, that we have learned something from you, or maybe we are copying your system or learning of I guess our colleagues from across the Atlantic in Canada are seeing, and I don't know the plans, but I assume and imagine that they have plans to receive refugees as well from Ukraine. But of course, the first wave is coming by train, by bus from Europe. So I guess that they will have a second wave.
Yeah.
Good. As I don't see any other questions, I would like to thank all the participants, all of you that ask us interesting questions. And as I said before, this will be in the online platform. We encourage you to participate, to make this a participatory project, a cluster topic where we can share experiences, best practices, and ask questions, ask the expert directly. So we are there and we can help you then achieve those results. So with that, again, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks especially to Jan Braat for his expertise. And I will wish you a good rest of the day. I will close this webinar.
Okay,
thanks.
you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.